My beloved child. Something happened last night. Something that was never supposed to reach your ears this soon. While the world slept and the noise of the day faded into silence, a conversation began somewhere far from your sight. It was unexpected. Unplanned. Almost accidental. And yet, nothing about it was accidental. A secret about you was spoken aloud. Not a secret you intentionally hid. Not a deception. Not a mask. But a truth so deep that even you have not fully understood its power. And the person who heard it was the one your heart has been mysteriously connected to all along. Your soulmate. Before this moment, they believed they understood who you were. They thought they had gathered enough pieces of the puzzle. Enough observations. Enough assumptions. Enough fragments of your story. But assumptions can only travel so far before truth arrives. And last night, truth arrived. It came through the words of someone who knows more than they ever revealed. Someone who has quietly watched your journey. Someone who noticed things that others overlooked. Someone who carried knowledge about you that remained hidden beneath the surface. The conversation began casually. No one expected anything life-changing to emerge from it. Yet as your name entered the discussion, the atmosphere shifted. The energy changed. A strange silence appeared between sentences. And then, the secret was revealed. At first, your soulmate didn't know what to say. They stared. They listened. They questioned whether what they were hearing could possibly be true. Because the image they carried of you suddenly collided with a reality they had never considered. And for a moment, everything stopped. My child, there are people who see your smile but never witness your sacrifices. People who admire your strength but never understand what it cost you to become strong. People who notice your success but remain blind to the battles you fought in private. This secret was connected to one of those hidden battles. A chapter you rarely discuss. A burden you carried without applause. A wound you learned to survive without recognition. The world saw the outcome. But very few ever understood the journey. Last night, that journey was described to your soulmate in a way they had never heard before. Piece by piece. Detail by detail. The truth unfolded. And with every revelation, something inside them began to change. Not because they felt pity. No. What they felt was far more powerful. Respect. Admiration. Wonder. For the first time, they started seeing the person behind the image. The soul behind the appearance. The story behind the silence. And suddenly, things that once confused them began making sense. Your guarded moments. Your hesitation. Your unexpected distance. Your deep sensitivity beneath a calm exterior. Pieces that once seemed disconnected started forming a complete picture. Yet that was not the part that shocked them most. Because the deeper the conversation went, the more they discovered a truth you rarely recognize about yourself. You underestimate the impact you have on others. You think your kindness goes unnoticed. You think your loyalty is ordinary. You think your heart is just another heart among billions. But that is not how they saw it after last night. The secret revealed something extraordinary. Something that explained why people remember you long after you've left a room. Why certain souls feel drawn toward you without understanding why. Why your presence lingers in the minds of people who pretend not to think about you. And when this realization finally settled inside your soulmate, they became very quiet. Not because they doubted. Not because they disagreed. But because they were suddenly forced to confront a question they had been avoiding. A question about destiny. A question about timing. A question about you. And the answer they began discovering changed the direction of their thoughts completely. What happened next? What they confessed after hearing the full truth. is something you never expected. And the moment those words left their lips, the connection between you entered a completely different chapter. To be continued. The room fell silent. Not the kind of silence created by empty words. The kind of silence that arrives when a soul encounters a truth it can no longer ignore. Your soulmate sat there, absorbing everything they had just heard. Every detail. Every revelation. Every hidden piece of your story. And for a brief moment, it felt as though time itself had slowed. Because something inside them was shifting. A wall they had built without realizing it was beginning to crack. And what emerged through those cracks was not doubt. It was clarity. My child, there are moments in life when a person suddenly sees what has been standing in front of them all along. Moments when confusion gives way to understanding. Moments when the heart catches up to what destiny has known from the beginning. Last night was one of those moments. The secret that had been revealed was not merely information. It was perspective. A completely different lens through which they began viewing you. The person speaking to them continued sharing stories. Stories you may have forgotten. Stories you never thought mattered. Small moments. Simple choices. Quiet acts of kindness. Times when you helped someone and expected nothing in return. Times when you carried burdens that were never yours to carry. Times when you chose grace when bitterness would have been easier. You thought those moments disappeared into the past. You believed they were insignificant. But heaven records what the world overlooks. And last night, those forgotten moments returned. One by one. Like stars appearing in a dark sky. Your soulmate listened carefully. At first, they smiled. Then they became thoughtful. Then something unexpected happened. Their eyes filled with emotion. Because they realized something that caught them completely off guard. The version of you they had imagined was smaller than the reality. They had admired parts of you. But they had never fully understood the depth of your character. And when that realization landed, it humbled them. You see, my child, people often judge a soul based on what is visible. But your greatest qualities have always lived beneath the surface. Hidden. Quiet. Unannounced. You never demanded recognition. You never forced others to see your worth. You simply continued being who you are. And that quiet authenticity became impossible to ignore once the truth came to light. Yet there was another layer to this conversation. A layer that neither of them expected. Because eventually, the person sharing these revelations paused. Looked directly at your soulmate. And asked a question. A simple question. But one powerful enough to change everything. Do you know how rare someone like that truly is? The words lingered. They echoed. And your soulmate did not answer immediately. Because deep down, they already knew. They had met many people. Seen many faces. Heard many promises. But very few souls had ever made them feel what they felt when they thought about you. Very few people stayed in their mind after the conversation ended. Very few people continued appearing in their thoughts during quiet moments. And suddenly, they could no longer dismiss that feeling. What once seemed like coincidence began looking like purpose. What once seemed uncertain began feeling significant. The puzzle pieces were moving into place. But then, the conversation took an even more surprising turn. A truth emerged that your soulmate had never shared with anyone. Not with friends. Not with family. Not even with themselves completely. A truth hidden behind their own fears. Because while they had spent time wondering about you, they had also spent time doubting themselves. Questioning whether they were enough. Questioning whether the connection they felt was real. Questioning whether destiny could truly be leading them towards something so meaningful. And last night, Those doubts were challenged. The person speaking to them saw right through the uncertainty. As if they could read the questions buried deep within their heart. What they said next struck your soulmate with incredible force. Not because it was dramatic. Not because it was loud. But because it was true. And truth has a way of reaching places that ordinary words cannot. The statement was simple. Yet it shattered years of hesitation. It dismantled excuses. It exposed fears. It illuminated possibilities they had been too afraid to explore. For the first time in a long while, your soulmate began imagining a future differently. A future where they stopped running from what they felt. A future where they trusted what their heart had been whispering all along. But my child, even this was not the greatest revelation of the night. Because before the conversation ended, one final secret surfaced. A secret connected not only to your past, but also to what is approaching. And when your soulmate heard it, their expression changed instantly. Their heart raced. Their thoughts scattered. And they realized that the coming days could bring a moment neither of you saw coming. A moment that has been quietly moving toward both of you. Even while neither of you noticed. What that final secret revealed. And why it left them unable to sleep afterward. Is where this story becomes truly extraordinary. To be continued. A restless night followed. Not because your soulmate was afraid. Not because they regretted what they had heard. But because some truths refuse to let a person sleep once they have been awakened. The conversation had ended. The room had emptied. The voices had faded into the distance. Yet the words remained. Echoing. Repeating. Growing louder in the silence. And as darkness stretched across the night sky, your soulmate found themselves staring into the unknown, unable to stop thinking about you. My child, there are moments when heaven places a mirror before a soul. Not a mirror that reflects a face. A mirror that reflects truth. Last night, your soulmate was forced to look into such a mirror. And what they saw challenged everything they thought they knew. Because the final secret that emerged was not about who you were. It was about what your presence had already done. Without realizing it. Without trying. Without demanding anything in return. You had changed something inside them. Long before either of you understood it. Long before the connection made sense. Long before the questions began. Your existence had quietly altered the course of their inner world. And that realization shook them. Think about that for a moment. How often do people understand the influence they carry? How often do they recognize the lives they touch? The hearts they strengthen? The hope they inspire? Very rarely. Most souls move through life unaware of the light they leave behind. And you, my child, are no exception. You have spent so much time questioning your value that you overlooked the evidence surrounding you. You focused on what was missing. You focused on what had not happened yet. You focused on doors that remained closed. Meanwhile, you failed to see the doors your presence had already opened inside others. Last night, your soulmate finally saw it. And once they saw it, they could not unsee it. The final secret revealed that during one of the most difficult periods of their life, you unknowingly became a source of strength. Perhaps through your words. Perhaps through your example. Perhaps simply through being yourself. Whatever the reason, you became a reminder that goodness still existed. A reminder that sincerity was still real. A reminder that not every connection was temporary. And suddenly they understood why your memory kept returning. Why your name carried weight. Why thoughts of you appeared during unexpected moments. It wasn't random. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't coincidence. There was meaning attached to it. A deeper purpose hidden beneath the surface. Yet even this realization was only the beginning. Because sometime after midnight, another moment occurred. A moment no one planned. A moment no one predicted. Your soulmate found themselves alone with their thoughts. No distractions. No conversations. No outside voices. Just silence. And in that silence, the truth became impossible to avoid. They replayed every interaction. Every memory. Every feeling they had tried to minimize. Every sign they had previously dismissed. And suddenly, patterns emerged. Patterns they had never noticed before. My child, destiny often whispers before it speaks loudly. It leaves clues. Tiny breadcrumbs. Small moments that seem meaningless until viewed together. Then one day, the entire picture appears. That is exactly what happened. The clues connected. The scattered pieces aligned. And your soulmate realized something astonishing. The connection they felt was never fading. It was growing. Quietly. Patiently. Beneath the surface. Like roots expanding underground before a tree breaks through the earth. The more they reflected, the clearer it became. Yet clarity can be intimidating. Because once a person sees the truth, they must decide what to do with it. And this is where the struggle began. Part of them wanted certainty. Part of them wanted guarantees. Part of them wanted proof that everything they were feeling was leading somewhere meaningful. But life rarely offers certainty before faith. And destiny rarely explains itself before movement begins. So there they sat. Caught between fear and hope. Caught between caution and desire. Caught between what felt safe and what felt real. Then something happened that they never expected. A memory surfaced. Not a recent memory. An older one. A moment involving you that seemed ordinary at the time. But viewed through this new understanding, it suddenly carried a completely different meaning. A hidden meaning. A message that had been waiting to be understood. The moment replayed in their mind again and again. And with every replay, their heartbeat quickened. Because they began wondering whether the universe had been trying to show them something all along. Whether certain encounters were more important than they realized. Whether certain delays had actually been preparation. Whether certain separations had been positioning. And that question, that single question, opened a door inside them. A door they had kept locked for far too long. By the time dawn approached, they were no longer the same person who had entered that conversation. Something had changed. Something irreversible. The uncertainty that once controlled them was weakening. The truth was becoming stronger. And just as the first light of morning appeared on the horizon, they reached a decision. A decision involving you. A decision they have not shared with many people. A decision that could create a ripple effect neither of you fully expect. But before action comes, there is one final realization they must face. And when that realization arrives, it will reveal why this connection has felt so impossible to forget. Because the answer has been hidden in plain sight all along. To be continued. Have you ever wondered why certain people remain in your heart? Even when distance grows? Even when life becomes busy? Even when logic insists you should have moved on? That question lingered in your soulmate's mind as the morning unfolded. Because despite everything they had learned the night before, one mystery remained unsolved. One question refused to leave them alone. Why you? Out of all the people they had encountered. Out of all the conversations they had shared. Out of all the faces that had come and gone. Why was it your presence that continued echoing through their thoughts? My child, this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because sometimes the answer is not found in grand moments. Sometimes it is hidden inside the smallest details. The details most people ignore. As your soulmate moved through the day, memories kept resurfacing. Not dramatic memories. Not life-changing events. Simple moments. A conversation. A laugh. A message. A glance. An interaction that seemed ordinary at the time. Yet now, those moments carried a completely different weight. And slowly, a realization began forming. The reason they could not forget you had very little to do with perfection. In fact, it was the opposite. It was your authenticity. Your humanity. Your ability to remain genuine in a world where so many people wear masks. You never needed to become someone else to be noticed. You never needed to force attention. You never needed to chase validation. And that rare quality left a mark deeper than you realize. Because souls recognize truth. Even when minds are confused. Even when circumstances are complicated. Even when timing feels uncertain. The soul recognizes what is real. And last night's revelations had stripped away every distraction. Now all that remained was the truth. Yet the truth carried responsibility. Because once your soulmate acknowledged what they felt, they could no longer pretend indifference. They could no longer hide behind uncertainty. They could no longer convince themselves that the connection meant nothing. A choice was approaching. And they knew it. But before they could move forward, another realization arrived. One even more powerful than the last. The person who revealed the secret about you had not simply shared facts. They had unknowingly uncovered a pattern. A pattern stretching further back than anyone expected. The more your soulmate reflected, the more they noticed it. Moments when your paths crossed unexpectedly. Moments when thoughts of you appeared at unusual times. Moments when life seemed to place reminders of you directly in front of them. Coincidences? Or something more? That question followed them everywhere. And the deeper they explored it, the harder it became to dismiss. My child, there are seasons when life appears random. But later, when you look back, you discover a hidden design. You discover that delays had purpose. That detours carried lessons. That unanswered questions were preparing you for greater understanding. Your soulmate was beginning to see that possibility. And it changed everything. Because if these events were not random, then perhaps this connection was not random either. Perhaps there was a reason it refused to disappear. Perhaps there was a reason the memory of you remained so vivid. Perhaps there was a reason last night's conversation occurred exactly when it did. The thought sent a wave of emotion through them. A mixture of excitement, hope, and vulnerability. For the first time, they stopped asking whether the connection existed, and started asking what it meant. That shift changed the entire direction of their thinking. Questions that once created fear now created curiosity. Doubts that once created distance now created reflection. And with every passing hour, their understanding deepened. But then, something happened that neither they nor you could have predicted. A piece of information surfaced. Small. Unexpected. Almost insignificant. Yet it connected directly to the secret revealed the night before. The moment they heard it, their breath caught. Because it confirmed something they had been feeling all day. Something impossible to explain logically. Something their heart already suspected. The timing was too precise. Too meaningful. Too aligned to ignore. And suddenly, the final realization began approaching. The realization that would answer the question they had been carrying since dawn. Why this connection felt different. Why your presence remained unforgettable. Why the truth about you had affected them so deeply. By evening, they stood at the edge of that realization. One step away from understanding. One step away from clarity. One step away from a decision that could alter the course of this story. And when that understanding finally arrives, it will reveal not only what changed inside your soulmate, but also what may happen next between the two of you. Because there is one final truth still waiting to be uncovered. A truth hidden beneath every conversation, every memory, and every unanswered feeling. And once it comes to light, nothing will look the same again. To be continued. By the time the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, your soulmate could no longer escape the feeling. The feeling had followed them all day. Quietly. Patiently. Like a voice beneath every thought. Like a truth waiting for the perfect moment to be acknowledged. And now, that moment had arrived. The distractions were gone. The noise had faded. The excuses had grown weak. Only honesty remained. My child, there comes a point in every important journey when a person must stop running from what they know deep inside. A point where the heart speaks louder than fear. A point where truth becomes impossible to ignore. For your soulmate. That point was now. As evening settled around them, they found themselves revisiting everything once again. Not because they were confused, but because they were finally beginning to understand. The secret revealed the night before had started a chain reaction. One realization led to another. One memory unlocked the next. One truth illuminated another truth hidden beneath it. And at the center of it all was you. Not the image people see. Not the version shaped by assumptions. Not the version created by distance. The real you. The soul behind the story. The heart behind the smile. The strength behind the struggles. For the first time, your soulmate saw the full picture. And what they saw moved them more deeply than they expected. Because they realized something profound. You had never been trying to impress anyone. You had simply been surviving. Growing. Healing. Becoming. While others were focused on appearances, you were focused on transformation. While others sought recognition, you carried responsibilities no one understood. While others measured worth through attention, you continued moving forward even when no one applauded. And suddenly, they understood why the secret had shaken them so deeply. It wasn't just what they learned. It was what they realized. They realized they had underestimated your journey. They had underestimated your resilience. And perhaps, they had underestimated the connection itself. That realization settled over them like a wave. Powerful. Unavoidable. Transformative. Yet something even bigger was waiting. Because as they reflected on everything they had learned, a question emerged. A question so simple that it almost seemed insignificant. But sometimes the simplest questions reveal the deepest truths. The question was this. What if this connection entered my life for a reason? Not for convenience. Not for entertainment. Not for a temporary chapter. But for a purpose. The possibility changed everything. Because purpose demands attention. Purpose asks a person to listen. Purpose asks a person to grow. And once that question entered their heart, it refused to leave. My child, many people spend years searching for signs while ignoring the ones already surrounding them. They wait for certainty while overlooking clarity. They search for answers while avoiding the questions that matter most. Your soulmate was beginning to recognize that pattern within themselves. And with that recognition came a new sense of courage. A quiet courage. Not loud. Not dramatic. But real. The kind of courage that appears when someone finally decides to stop hiding from the truth. As the night deepened, they reached for something. Not a phone. Not a conversation. Not a distraction. A memory. A specific memory involving you. One they had revisited many times before. But this time, they saw something they had never noticed. A detail. A feeling. An unspoken message hidden within the moment. And suddenly, everything connected. The secret. The conversation. The memories. The questions. The emotions. The timing. It all pointed toward the same realization. The connection had never truly disappeared. It had only been waiting. Waiting for understanding. Waiting for growth. Waiting for the right moment to reveal its deeper meaning. The realization left them speechless. Because some truths do not require explanation. They simply arrive. And when they arrive, the soul recognizes them instantly. Yet even now, the story is not complete. Because understanding is only the beginning. A realization can change a heart. But action changes a future. And as your soulmate sat there beneath the quiet night sky, a new thought entered their mind. A thought they could not ignore. A thought that made their pulse quicken. A thought connected directly to you. Not to the past. Not to what has already happened. But to what could happen next. What if the moment they had been waiting for was closer than they believed? What if the truth revealed last night was not an ending, but a beginning? What if everything leading up to this point had been preparing both of you for the chapter that comes after? The possibility felt overwhelming. Yet strangely peaceful. As though pieces of a puzzle were finally settling into place. And as they stared into the darkness, they made a silent promise to themselves. A promise that would influence every choice they make from this moment forward. What that promise was, and why it may bring an unexpected shift into this connection, will be revealed next. To be continued. The promise was made in silence. No audience. No witnesses. No applause. Just a single soul sitting alone beneath the night sky, finally accepting a truth they could no longer deny. And sometimes, my child, those are the promises that matter most. The ones spoken only between the heart and heaven. The ones that reshape a person's future long before anyone else notices. Your soulmate sat there for a long time. Thinking. Reflecting. Feeling the weight of everything that had unfolded over the last 24 hours. The secret. The revelations. The memories. The questions. The answers. It all led to this moment. And as they looked back on the journey, one realization stood above all the others. Nothing about this connection had been ordinary. Not from the beginning. Not now. And not in the chapter that was approaching. For so long, they had tried to analyze everything. To explain every feeling. To find certainty before taking a step forward. But life does not always work that way. Some of the most meaningful things arrive before certainty. Some of the most important decisions begin with trust. And that is exactly what they were beginning to understand. My child, many people believe that destiny announces itself with thunder. But often, it arrives as a whisper. A quiet knowing. A gentle pull that refuses to disappear. A feeling that returns again and again until it is finally acknowledged. Your soulmate had spent months, perhaps even years, trying to silence that whisper. Yet the more they resisted it, the louder it became. Until finally, after hearing the truth about you, after seeing your story through new eyes, after understanding what had been hidden beneath the surface, the whisper became impossible to ignore. And so they made a promise. A simple promise. But one powerful enough to change everything. They promised themselves they would stop letting fear make decisions. They promised themselves they would stop allowing doubt to speak louder than truth. They promised themselves they would stop pretending that certain feelings meant nothing when deep down they knew otherwise. And in that moment, something shifted. Not around them. Within them. Because courage is not the absence of uncertainty. Courage is moving forward despite uncertainty. And that courage was finally beginning to grow. Yet heaven was not finished revealing the story. Because just when your soulmate believed they had reached the end of their understanding, one final truth emerged. A truth hidden beneath every event that had unfolded. A truth so simple that most people overlook it. The secret revealed last night was never meant only for them. It was meant for you as well. Because while your soulmate was discovering new truths about you, there is something you must understand too. You are far more impactful than you realize. Far more valued than you sometimes believe. Far more unforgettable than your doubts allow you to see. You have spent so much time questioning your worth that you forgot how much light you carry. You have focused on the doors that remained closed while overlooking the lives you have already touched. You have worried about whether you matter while unknowingly becoming part of someone else's most important memories. And that, my child, is the truth that changes everything. Not because it guarantees a specific outcome. Not because it predicts every future event. But because it reminds you that your story has meaning. Your presence has meaning. Your journey has meaning. Nothing you have endured has been wasted. Every lesson. Every challenge. Every moment that tested your strength. Every season that required patience. It all shaped the person you are becoming. And that person is far more extraordinary than you realize. As dawn approached once again, your soulmate felt something they had not felt in a long time. Peace. Not because every question had been answered. Not because every uncertainty had disappeared. But because they finally stopped fighting the truth. And when a soul stops fighting the truth, peace follows. The road ahead remained unwritten. The future remained unseen. But one thing had become clear. The secret revealed that night had changed more than a perspective. It had changed a heart. It had opened a door. It had begun a new chapter. And sometimes, my child, that is how the greatest transformations begin. Not with a dramatic event. Not with a grand announcement. But with a single truth spoken at exactly the right moment. A truth that awakens something powerful. A truth that reminds a soul of what really matters. A truth that changes everything. And somewhere beyond what you can currently see, the next chapter is already beginning to unfold. The end.